The Astros may have won the battle in the regular season, but can the Mariners win the war of the ALS? Our ALDS preview is coming up. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Monday, October 10th, 2022. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. If you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description below. Tomorrow is the big day, Game 1 of the American League Division Series between the Houston Astros and the Seattle Mariners. One of 3 intra-divisional matchups in the divisional round, so a lot of fun stuff going on all around Major League Baseball. Logan Gilbert versus Justin Verlander tomorrow, 12:37 Pacific time, first pitch. We'll talk about the start times later. Don't like it, but it is what it is. We'll get into that later, like I said. But Colby, let's start out with Gilbert, who was scheduled to start in Game 3 of the Wild Card Series. Of course, didn't need that game. And you had talked about how concerned you were about Gilbert against the Blue Jays, who he has historically struggled with. He has fared pretty well against the Astros in the past. Do you think this is a better matchup for him than Toronto?
A little bit better. It's still not ideal, obviously, but the Astros are a very right-handed heavy team, but so are the Blue Jays. So really, the thing with the Blue Jays and the Astros or whoever, it really doesn't matter who Gilbert's going up against, because for Logan Gilbert, it still comes down to the fastball command, regardless of who he faces. So, is it possible that just the few times he's faced the Blue Jays, he just didn't have as good fastball command, and that's why he struggled? Sure. But yeah, if Gilbert's not on the corners, both, at the letters and, on the actual corners of the plate with the fastball, then he's going to get hit hard. And whether it's Toronto or Houston, it's not like the lineup is significantly worse in Houston than it is in Toronto. So yeah, I don't know if it's an easier matchup. I don't know if it's, it's not going to be a walk in the park, but I do think that you probably feel a little more confident in it just because he has had some success against the Astros. He hasn't been dominant against them, but he's been pretty good against them in his career. And Toronto, he's just been god awful. So there has to be some familiarity or some sense of relief just based on what history tells us. But with Gilbert, it's pretty simple. If he can command the fastball, if he can get it at the letters or slightly above, and he can get it off the outside corner to all these righties, he's going to have a shot to go deep in this game and pitch really well, like he has for pretty much all of September. If he doesn't, he's going to get hit hard, and the Mariners are going to go down 1-0 because Verlander on the other side is not going to give Seattle many opportunities. And so Gilbert kind of has to match him pitch for pitch, which is it's pretty difficult to say when the other guy's sporting a 1.75 ERA.
Yeah. Now, of course, we've said that, Gilbert has had success against the Astros, but not necessarily at Minute Maid Park. But that is also kind of being dragged down by his rookie season last year. 295, 347, 545 slash line at Minute Maid Park for Astros hitters against Logan Gilbert over his career. But you look at this season, however, 261, 333, 435. That's still not great, but 3.75 ERA. He's given up 5 doubles, only 1 home run in that time, just 5 earned runs, and so he's kind of figured it out in the stadium this year, but we'll see, of course, how he fares in a playoff setting. Anything can really go in that situation. And look, he's not only going to need the fastball, he's also going to need something secondary, something tertiary. He's going to need, especially the changeup. Going up against the likes of Kyle Tucker, going up against the likes of Yordan Alvarez, he's going to need that pitch to work for him. Or else, again, like you said, he's going to get knocked around. And the Mariners, look, it doesn't matter if the Dodgers were walking into that stadium tomorrow. Justin Verlander is not going to give you many opportunities. You are not going to score many runs off of Justin Verlander. This is one of those games that either you drive his pitch count up or you have to win it 2-1.
Mm-hmm. Right. The one Achilles heel of Verlander is he will challenge you with his fastball early. So he will give up some home runs. So you can score off of him usually by hitting home runs. But because he, fills the strike zone, it's you're not going to bunch up hits against him. The stuff is too good. So you're probably looking at mostly solo home runs. That's why Verlander, can traditionally, be top 5 in home runs allowed for a pitcher and still put up, sub 2 ERAs, just because they only give up solo home runs and the stuff is so good. So there's an opportunity. Seattle did jump on him once this year. You remember they put up 6 runs against him. So, there is the chance that he has an off day, but you don't really want to bank on it. So, yeah, runs are going to be at a premium in this game. I think probably the best you could possibly hope for is how Seattle managed to attack Manoah in game 1, and it's just score early and then just kind of, score early, get the big home run that you need, and then you just kind of try and play add-on and then just try to pitch them and defense them to death. That's how you're probably going to win this game. It's just somebody's going to, I don't want to say luck into a home run, but somebody's going to, pipe a 2-run bomb. Maybe you can produce 1 extra run and you're going to try and win this thing 3-1, 3-2 in Houston, which isn't easy, but it's definitely possible. So,
and can we finally get some luck with the Crawford boxes, please? It always feels like Houston has luck with it. We never get a home run on the Crawford boxes. We never get just a routine pop fly, just barely clear the wall there. Can we please get that this week? Can we please? I'm asking the baseball gods right now. Just let Julio hit like a routine pop fly that just barely gets over. Please.
First row of the Crawford boxes.
Yes.
Yeah, those are an abomination of Major League Baseball, by the way. We'll see what can happen here. Like I said, it's a matchup that certainly favors the Astros, but that was probably going to be true even if you could start Luis Castillo in game 1, right? So Verlander's just been that guy all year. Again, you can't get to him usually through the solo home run. It's going to be very difficult to bunch up hits against Verlander. So in that one opportunity you might get where maybe you get a guy on second and third with 1 out, you have to find a way to get at least one of those guys and probably both of them. And if it happens to be via the home run, great. If it's just a regular single and you put up 2, great. Like the ability to score more than 1 run in an inning off of Verlander is probably going to be the difference in this game. If the Mariners can do it, they have a good shot. If they can't do it, then they're probably only going to score 1 or 2 runs, and it's going to be very difficult for any pitcher to hold this offense to 1 or 0 runs over, especially at Minute Maid Park.
Yeah, this is this is certainly a series that presents a lot of disadvantages for the Mariners. They are pretty much outmanned in every category except for maybe the bullpen. But we said this last week going into the Blue Jays series where the Mariners were outmanned in a lot of areas of the game as well. It just comes down to how you play, And also, again, I'm very interested to see, because this is a completely new format. We've never seen anything like this. We've never seen teams get a full bye week before they start playing again. So how does that affect the Astros, if at all? Or does it help them, right? Because I think the idea behind it is that it's supposed to give you an advantage, but does it actually give you an advantage? We haven't put that to the test yet. So we'll see how all of that comes together. And again, it's a 5 games, or it's a best of 5 series. It's not a best of 7. So I think that also gives the Mariners an advantage here because you have to win, one fewer game. So in order to advance. So we'll see how it goes. Now, I want to ask you about what this means for the Mariners and the landscape of the AL West if the Mariners do win this series in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to our listeners by Simply Safe. The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen Simply Safe Home Security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. And at Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. I know because I use Simply Safe in my own home. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. Here's why I love it. With 24/7 professional monitoring, Simply Safe's agents call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or can't be reached. Simply Safe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Our monitoring experts use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb to learn more. There's no safe like Simply Safe. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. So, Colby, if the Mariners win this series, is this the statement? Is this the message to the Houston Astros that the AL West is ours now? Or does it really not change the landscape whatsoever heading into 2023?
I don't want to say it doesn't change the landscape at all, but I think it's tough to say that, you beat them 3 times in a week and all of a sudden it's your division now. You own the show when they've won it, 6 years in a row now? 5 years, 5 out of 6 years, whatever it's been. So yeah, it's I don't know if it's that, but I do think it's a statement, not only to the Astros but to all of Major League Baseball that the Seattle Mariners are real. They're not a lot of their Cinderella story. They're like, no, they're a really good baseball team is what they are. And they, since July 1st, they've been like only 4 games worse than the Astros. So for more than half the year, they've been basically as good as the Astros. And so I think, there's this narrative right now that, Seattle's this big underdog and this big like Cinderella story. And, oh, look how cute they captured lightning in a bottle type of thing. And it's like, that's not the case at all. This is a very good baseball team, and they were pretty darn good last year as well. So I don't know if it necessarily changes the narrative in the AL West. I still think we'll go into next year assuming that the Astros are going to win the division, probably until somebody actually knocks them off. That's just kind of the way it works here when you're trying to prognosticate. So I don't know if it's a statement that, the AL West runs through Seattle now, but I do think it's a statement that regardless of, Houston's position in the division, the Mariners are a legitimate World Series contender. And if they have to, if they win the division, great. If they can't, they're going to be a heck of a difficult team to knock out of the wild card. So I think it's more about a statement to all of Major League Baseball that this isn't a one-off. This isn't a Cinderella story. This isn't, just, oh, look, they backed their way in and look good for them. Like, no, this is an announcement that they've arrived, not that they've just crashed the party. Like they're buying the house. You know what I mean? Like they're hosting the parties here pretty soon. So I think it's more about that than it is about like a changing of the guard in the American League West, because Houston's still going to be very good next year.
Yes.
There's just no doubt about it. They don't look like they're slowing down anytime soon. So yeah, maybe it's the start of a great rivalry. I don't know exactly how you want to phrase it, but no, I wouldn't say it's a changing of the guard if the Mariners win. I would just say it's more of an announcement to the rest of the sport that we're not. You can keep calling us a Cinderella story, that's fine, but we're a really good baseball team, and we're going to be a problem for a few years.
And I think we've already seen the start of the rivalry. You think about some of the contention between these two teams over the last couple of years. We had a benches clearing earlier this year. We had the situation last year after Dylan Moore hit the grand slam and Brooks Raley hit J.P. Crawford and Scott Service yelling at the Astros dugout. These teams do not like one another, and I think we're going to see that really come to a head in this series. I don't know if that's going to lead to another benches clearing or anything like that, but I think we're going to see a lot of jawing back and forth. I think we're going to see some legit drama in this series because, again, there's a lot at stake here, not just for the postseason, but also in terms of, the Mariners making this statement like, hey, we're here. We're going to be a problem for you guys from here on out. Like, we are not pushovers anymore. And look, yeah, you got us in the regular season, but it all comes down to this series. And if we beat you, if we win 3 games here, you're going home, and we're going to be the ones that send you home. So that's like the narratives that kind of go with that, just the storylines, that's really exciting for me going into this series. And I think this is a really, really big series for the Mariners, just for the future of the Mariners. I think this, no matter what happens from this point forward, if they're able to win this series, I think that adds legitimacy to you. Like, that adds some real legitimacy to you as a team. And you already done that, right? With ending the drought, winning a playoff series, especially in the way that you did in Toronto. But still, like, this is the top dog in the AL West. And this is a great challenge. And look, I was the one that wanted the Godslayer route. And I think that is a route that the Mariners, like, very few teams can make that run. I think the Mariners are one of those teams, though, just the way that they've been able to play, especially against good teams this year. And if they're able to do that, if they're able to beat this team, if they're able to knock these dudes out, like, anything is possible. Like, at that point, I'm legitimately thinking World Series, because right now it's still, it's hard to buy in, right? Like, like the Mariners are in a really good spot, but they're definitely not at their peak in this rebuild, I would say. Like, there's still a lot of room for this team to grow, but hey, you beat the Astros, you can do whatever you want, I think.
Right. It's probably worth noting that, yes, the Astros won the season series. I think it was 7-12.
Yep.
It was 6-6 before the last 7 games were played. The Mariners didn't have Luis Castillo when they played the Astros. They didn't have a healthy Mitch Haniger when they played the Astros. I would argue they still don't, but whatever. And despite all of that, the run differential between these two teams, Houston +8. In 19 games, Houston was 8 runs better than the Mariners. These are going to be close games. These are two very good teams. And as I already mentioned, Seattle, finished 4 games worse than the Astros did from July 1st on. So even with the late season struggles of the Mariners, they still only finished 4 games behind the Astros in about 80 games, in an 80 game stretch. So, I do think these two teams are a little more evenly matched than conventional wisdom would say, and people would look at the head-to-head and all that stuff, but just you dig a little deeper and you look at who's been the best over this long stretch. Houston's a little bit better. Who's run differential? Houston's a little bit better, but again, that's what we're talking about, a little bit here. And now the Mariners are in the playoffs. They only have to beat them 3 times. They get to throw Gilbert twice and probably Castillo twice to some degree. It sets up really well. And as dumb as the schedule is, the every other day thing until the weekend, which is, again, so dumb. Yeah. But that actually does help Seattle because, it's a possibility. Maybe it's something we can talk about here. Like, hypothetically, let's say Seattle wins game 1 in game 2, right? They're just up 2-0. Do you want to start Robbie Ray in game 3, knowing that you have these 2 games in your back pocket? Or do you maybe consider, because of the off days, do you maybe go like, oh, well, actually what we're going to do is we're going to throw Brash for 2. We're going to throw Ray for 2. We're going to throw Kirby for 3. Then we're going to throw Munoz and Sewald and like, what
for
I mean?
Me,
like,
if it actually gets to that point, I think there's no way in hell that the Mariners get to Seattle with a 2-0 lead, but we'll see. Right. But if they do, you got to go for the kill shot. You can't give this team even a chance. You have to step on their throats.
Right. And the kill shot, unfortunately, is still probably Robbie Ray. Like, I know people are like, do you even start Robbie Ray? Well, who's the other option? Are you going to start Marco Gonzalez?
Yeah, that's the thing too, right? It's
Marco probably has a better shot of not imploding, but that's not going to work.
For me, I'm starting Kirby.
Right. But did the Mariners seem all that I don't know what the Mariners plan to do with Kirby. It's kind of weird, right? How they used him they didn't use him for long relief, right?
I kind of feel like they were planning on maybe piggybacking him with Gilbert in game 3 if they didn't use him to close.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, but you look at the options. You look at Ray, Kirby, and Marco. Like, do any of those guys fill you with tremendous confidence against the Astros right now? No, they don't. But, at least one of them is going to have to make a start. Gilbert can start game 1 and game 4. If you get to 4, Castillo can start game 2. And I don't think he can start game 5. I think he's just 1 day short on his normal rest, but he can certainly pitch in that game if you need him to. for a couple innings. So you can kind of make that work, but you still have to figure out who's starting game 3. And to me, it's going to be Ray. Just because in that scenario, I need upside, right? I have to go with a guy who I think has a shot to shut down that lineup. And as bad as Ray has been the last few times out, and as bad as Kirby has been the last few times out, and Marco, like all of them, I think Ray gives me the best shot to actually shut down that lineup. If not Ray, then Kirby. I think if you're asking me like who's most likely to go 6 innings and give up 3 runs, Marco. Is that going to be good enough? No.
Yeah.
It's not. You need and when you're kind of the dog like the Mariners are, you have to take shots like that. And Robbie Ray, when he's on, he is a legitimate, high level 3, low end 2 type of guy. Like we've seen him for stretches be an ace basically this year, even with all of his struggles. So I still think you're going to have to use Robbie Ray in some extended role in the series. So we'll see. I do think that's why it's critically important for Seattle to split in Houston. They have to find a way to take one of these first 2. Because if you go down into Seattle or you go down to Houston, you come back to Seattle down 2-0, it's not impossible. You can win 3 games in a row, sure. But 3 in a row against Houston, when you know you're going to have to face Verlander at least one more time, it's not ideal. So I think it's critically important for the Mariners to take one of these first 2, and ideally both. That would be amazing. But find a way to win one of these games with Gilbert and Castillo on the mound, and then I think you're in pretty good shape.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the schedule coming up. We know the start times for the next 2 games. Like I said at the top of the show, 12:37 Pacific time for both games 1 and 2, and then there's 2 slot times that it could be for game 3 on Saturday. That is either 10 in the morning Pacific time. I don't think that's what it's going to be because there's also New York and Cleveland, and it would make sense for those teams to play at 1 o'clock their time. But again, also Major League Baseball doesn't make sense, so who knows? But the other potential start time, and again, all of these games are on TBS, and that's a whole other thing we can get into because TBS isn't available for a lot of folks. But the other start time is potentially 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, which, I mean, that's what you want, right? You want the first playoff game in Seattle in 21 years to be a primetime game, right?
I mean, yeah, in theory, I think you just take what you can get, but it does feel dumb, frankly, to have the Mariners play at 11 a.m. their time, so that the Yankees can play at 9:30 at night their time.
Yeah. So I don't like when you say it like that. I don't think that. I think Yankees
Right.
Guardians are going to be the 10 a.m. slot,
right? And that game's going to be in Cleveland, so it's not even like it's a game at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
It would be moronic for that game to start at 9:30 at night, New York time. But it's also moronic the schedule that Major League Baseball laid out. It's pretty moronic that they're playing these games at noon on weekdays. So yeah, there's no such thing as smart people in the Major League Baseball front offices. That just doesn't exist. So.
Yeah. And then the scheduling of it all, right? You mentioned it earlier. So they play on Tuesday, they play on Thursday, and they play on Saturday. So they get a day in between the first 3 games, but then they play Saturday, Sunday if necessary. Then they have to travel to Houston. Both teams have to travel to Houston and play the next day on Monday for game 5.
Mm-hmm. That game's probably going to be in the afternoon too. So, yeah, Major League Baseball, they dumb. I don't know what to tell you. They're stupid. That's a dumb schedule. Kind of helps the Mariners, not going to lie. You get 2 days off now to reset your bullpen. And then you can be as aggressive as you want because you have those in games 1 and 2 because you have those built-in days off. So, and obviously, it doesn't benefit Houston much because they've just gotten their rest, right? They don't need those days. So, it kind of benefits Seattle, but it's just overall it's unnecessary. I don't get why wouldn't you just start this thing, go, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, and then play on Tuesday when you're not competing against Monday Night Football or anything like that for your product. I don't get what Major League Baseball's goal was here. maybe it won't come into play. Maybe one of these teams will sweep the other one and it'll be done on Saturday anyways, or maybe it will. I don't know, but there's just no way around it. It's dumb.
Yeah.
I can't, it's just stupid.
No, it's mind-blowingly dumb. It's just galaxy brain stupid from Major League Baseball, but also what do you expect? It's Major League Baseball.
Expect nothing less.
It's the league that enacted its own lockout and then pretended like it was the players' fault for like 4 months. So yeah. So a couple of notes here. For those of you that are gonna try to watch the games, because again, blackouts on MLB TV if you're in the area, can't watch it on there. And I know a lot of people with their TV packages don't have access to TBS. I had a listener, Dakota, who reached out to me last night and wanted me to talk about how Fubo TV also doesn't have it. But thanks to Joe Vieira, at Joe Vieira on Twitter, we do have some options. They're not great, but there are options to watch the game if you don't have TBS. You can get a 5-day free trial of DirecTV Stream, and there's TBS on there. Sling TV, you can also get half off the first month, Joe lists here. And then you can also get a free trial of YouTube TV. And that also has TBS on it. The other thing, too, is the Mariners are not doing watch parties this week as they prepare to get the ballpark ready for Saturday. So no watch parties. So either basically it's if you don't have access to TBS, you would have to go through DirecTV Stream or Sling TV or YouTube TV and do one of their free trials or one of their promotions, or go to a sports bar, basically. I think that's really people's only options on that front.
Let's make it as hard as possible for people to watch these games.
Yeah.
Classic Major League Baseball logic.
Classic Major League Baseball logic. Absolutely. So the other thing, we don't know who's starting game 2 for the Astros. We know that Luis Castillo is starting game 2 for the Mariners, but today Astros manager Dusty Baker said that he was not ready to confirm his rotation aside from Verlander. So we know that Verlander is starting tomorrow, but aside from Verlander, we don't know how the rotation is going to line up for the Astros because there is apparently a sickness going around the Astros clubhouse. That's what Dusty Baker referred to it as, a sickness. So we don't know if it's like COVID or just a stomach bug or whatever. But I would assume that is likely impacting either Framber Valdez or Lance McCullers Jr., because either one of those guys seem like the prime choice to start game 2 of this series. So it's possible game 2 could be started by Luis Garcia, Christian Javier, maybe even Jose Urquidy, even though that he was put in the bullpen towards the end of the season. So there are options, and those are still scary options because those guys are really good. I mean, the Astros might have the best starting rotation in all baseball. You're running into an absolute wood chipper here with this rotation, no matter who you get. So, but it seems like maybe you avoid McCullers or Valdez until game 3 or 4 if necessary. So, do you feel good about that? Do you feel good about avoiding one of those guys potentially and then instead facing Javier or Garcia? Or are you like me where it's just like it doesn't really matter who you're facing? The Astros, like all their guys are really good.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Urquidy probably seems like the most hittable guy, but he dominated the Mariners this year too. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. Whoever is throwing, or they could even do a bullpen day and that would still be pretty tough. So Houston's got great pitching, or a lot of good pitching depth, and they're going to show it in this series. So it doesn't really matter who you face. It's going to come down to which team pitches better, honestly. And Seattle certainly has a smaller margin of error than Houston does. So they really need their starting pitching to be quite good because it is going to be difficult to score runs against this staff, regardless of who's on the mound. So you got to take advantage of those situations when they do come up, and even the best pitchers will give you 1 or 2 opportunities in a game to score some runs. And so when they do, whether it's Valdez or McCullers or Urquidy or Javier or the bullpen, you have to take advantage of it because you're not going to get many opportunities.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow after the game. Peace.